is my second year with the Junior League. I am part of the community council. Aside from both of those things, I recently completed my MBA at BU, so go BU. And I'm really excited to kind of dive into this topic. I live in Brighton, and really pre-pandemic, a lot of businesses and storefronts were closed, and I want to understand how I can get involved in the area locally to try and bolster the development in this area, even especially now with so much more economic strain. So I'm really excited for this. Oh, I have to pass it on to someone. Amy.
Great, thanks. So Amy Baxter, this is my first year in the Junior League, so first year in the pandemic year. I live in Somerville, and professionally, I am a senior manager at a consulting firm working in the energy industry. Ashley.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. I'm Ashley Bosmer. That's my maiden name up on the screen, but my last name is Bosmer. This is my second year on the Junior League, so my first year as an active member. And I am in an appointed leadership position this year as the chair for the STEM program of East Boston, which we have not really been able to get off the ground yet, but we have finally been able to get more connections with our partner and try to get something kicked off virtually in March. So we're trying to do that so we can still get the STEM program going for the middle school girls. Professionally, I work at a robotics company as a financial planning and analysis manager for the CFO. And just full disclosure, I'm sitting here in a silk robe right now because I'm stuck in San Antonio with no running water for days. So you're getting a nice shot of me in my PJs, but I really wanted to join this meeting, and I hope that we don't lose power. But if I drop off, it's not because I'm not interested, it's because something happened with the Wi-Fi connection. But I really was interested in joining this talk because I double majored in business and political science, and I haven't done anything with my political science degree, but I do know I have always wanted to get involved in local government at some point later in my career, because I know that that's where you can have the biggest impact. So I was really happy to join this call. And I will pass it over to, let's see, who hasn't gone yet?
Well, you can end with me, and I'll pick
oh, okay.
It's okay. It's all right. It's okay. I'm Jen Farrell. I am on the training council for Junior League of Boston. I've been with JLB for, this will be my 5th year. Professionally, I lead the U.S. federal healthcare business for Medtronic. Medtronic is the largest medical device company in the world. So Lisa, let's go ahead and kick it off. I think Abby had certainly something very, very poignant. So as we see in these, as we're going through the pandemic, there are a lot of storefronts that are closing. In some communities, Main Street started to kind of fold up. I remember, Fitchburg, for example, right? Folding up, used to be a very bustling Main Street and then had closed up. But if we think now, into some communities where in post-pandemic world, storefronts are closing, what can we do as citizens to reinvigorate the Main Street economy?
Yeah, well, I do think it's incredibly important for us to be educated consumers and to vote with our dollars. And a lot of that is really understanding the complexities that are facing small businesses these days. I mean, there's so much to look at through, for example, just the equity lens. And that certainly makes a big difference whether, we choose to just support local businesses, and or if we choose to additionally look at equity in terms of environmental and racial justice. And a lot of that information is not readily out there. I'll give you a recent example. So in Winchester, which is very different from Fitchburg. So it's a town I've only just getting to know the place. I've only been there for 2 years. And in Fitchburg, I had the luxury of being an economic development official before becoming mayor. So I was intimately aware of what businesses were there, the business owners. I knew people personally. I worked with them on getting loans and, restructuring and all sorts of things that really help boost local businesses and get an understanding of what was there before I then became a political leader and had to make some real policy decisions. So even just last week, I was trying to see if we could find Black and Brown business owners to highlight for Black History Month. And I was just asking a lot of people from the town if they knew, business owners, a chamber, and I'll be honest, I wasn't able to find any minority-owned businesses yet. And that was both, an interesting thing. So I thought, the simplicity of, highlighting, a few Black or Brown businesses would have been, here they are, put them in the newsletter, has now become a much more complex issue, which is the infrastructure, the ecosystem, for some reason, isn't supporting a lot of minority-owned businesses in town. So I need to figure out why that is, and if there's anything I can do to change that. So from a consumer, let's say you were in Winchester and wanted to support minority-owned businesses. It's not easy for you as a consumer to know that, right? You walk into a store, you don't know who the owner is. So if I'm an elected official or appointed official and I'm trying to actively do this and I'm having a hard time figuring that out, then, then it's hard for us to directly put our dollars, where we want to make investments in terms of an equity lens. So, I think a lot of that is just sort of being intentional. And what I had found is, town's been around for hundreds of years and people are telling me no one's ever asked them that question. Oh, we don't keep track of that. That doesn't, that's not something that we know about. And I think the most startling conversation I had was I was told I was racist for asking if there were minority-owned businesses. And that was very shocking to me. I had to literally look in the mirror and say, am I a racist for wanting to know if there are Black and Brown businesses, and or am I internalizing, what somebody else is projecting on me? And I came to the conclusion that it was the latter. You do a quick search of the news and you'll see that Boston is being sued because only 1.2% of the $2 billion in public contracts are being awarded to minority-owned businesses, and 0.4% are being awarded to Black-owned businesses, right? So people are keeping track. It matters. But, if no one's asking the questions, we're not going to get to that point of transparency. We're not going to get to that point where, leaders can help educate ourselves and the public and help, make those kinds of changes. So I do think it's important that we vote with our dollars. I do think it's important that we ask those questions. So even as consumers, doing those searches and saying, if you don't see it, then asking your municipal officials or asking your chambers or asking your business associations, where are these lists? What are some potential barriers to entry? And each of us are in different fields, so there are barriers to entry in our own fields that I think are applicable to any kind of business, including small businesses in Main Street. So I feel like I could talk the entire time about this one issue, but I would say that I definitely have been trying to vote with my dollars, but I've also been finding it's hard to find information, and it's even hard as a local leader to be very intentional about what we do.
Abby, was that helpful?
That was, my internet cut out in the beginning, but I caught up. I think that's, yeah, being able to be intentional and find those pockets of information is definitely, I think, really important to try and get a hold of and understand so that you can make either your own changes or let other people know. So thank you.
I mean, I have found that, you know, it's so interesting how people are marketing themselves and making money outside of the traditional forms where they're not having to be represented by, let's say, a big company. And maybe Marie, you know this more than I do, but I think even the power of our own voices and our own social media, word of mouth, you know, posting a favorite product or local business that we like, there's power in that. That translates into real foot traffic, into real audience members. Because if we find something where we're the customer, most likely our social feed is full of people who are also that target audience. So we can definitely make a difference that way.
Hmm. So Lisa, a question for you. When we talk about kind of economic development, are there, you know, are there volunteer type positions on boards that we might be able to get involved with so that, you know, maybe, you know, we don't want to start in, you know, career politician because we have other professional careers, but is there a way that we can kind of step into through volunteer positions, different types of boards where we can get involved, maybe get a taste of what it might be like to be an elected official?
Yeah, I mean, so in Winchester alone, there are over 50 boards that one can get involved in. And they range from everything from, you know, the audit committee that helps, you know, hire the auditor to look at municipal finances and review the report. And, you know, so you have a bunch of, you know, accountants and people who have that specific expertise on board, which is very helpful. To, you know, we have 3 separate boards that deal with housing, affordability, housing development, financing. And again, these are just local. We have multiple boards that work on environmental issues, from things that are more direct, like the Climate Action Advisory Committee, to the Conservation and Board of Health, which have also played environmental roles. We have a number of committees that are, you know, have a primary focus, but also have developed a racial equity lens. The Climate Action group in particular has really embraced understanding that that climate is really an equity question as well, especially the impacts of it. But there are, you know, there's planning boards and library boards, and yeah, so there's, you know, I don't think I can name all 50, but
All volunteer though, not elected.
these are all volunteer. You know, and a lot of, it depends if you're a city or town. So a lot of cities, obviously, you know, the mayors, the city councilors, sometimes school committee in Boston is an elected position, but there's plenty of ways to get appointed. I know there's, you know, in Boston, they have, you know, they have like a women's commission, you know, things that Winchester doesn't have, but they're being a smaller community, but there's probably different task forces that are both temporary that you can jump on, to more permanent, you know, boards that maybe have, you know, 2-year or 3-year revolving terms that you can jump on. But most sites will have all of those vacant board positions on their town website. Sometimes they're listed as volunteer opportunities. Sometimes they're hidden under job opportunities, even though they're volunteer. But if you sort of Google it, you should be able to find those positions. And there are also things where, for example, we just did a couple of big plans. Like we just did a master plan that, you know, looks at everything in the community, and it pulls together a plan for the next 10 years. The town had not done a master plan since the 50s. So it's been 70 years since we've had a plan. That was a major undertaking. So you have a volunteer board that put that together. And then you also have a lot of, you know, members that just attended the events. They just went to roundtables, or they had virtual meetings to discuss topics. They had, the consultant had come up with like a meeting kit where anybody could, you know, take the toolkit and actually host their own meeting in their living room or with friends and neighbors, and then take that product and contribute it towards the plan, which is pretty cool. So there's a lot of ways to get involved depending on your time and interest.
Yeah, I think a misconception is that if you want to get involved in municipal government, you either have to be a full-time employee, right, or be elected. And my mom actually, she did a training for us a couple of weeks ago on Municipal Government 101, and actually one of the things she talked about was how to prepare yourself for getting elected, and being a volunteer on one of those boards is a way to be able to do that.
So when you're putting together a plan or a strategy like that, how do you make sure that you have all the right representation of the community participating, giving their 2 cents and their feedback?
Yeah, it's really having a good understanding of the demographics of the community, whether it's the language spoken, whether it's the the social and economic diversity that exists, so that we are able to intentionally reach out. Because again, if we sort of have meetings and just assume that somebody is able to look at a government calendar and know that that meeting is happening and join that Zoom or attend in person. Zoom, by the way, has done wonders in terms of attendance at public meetings. It's been really great, both being able to attend, ask questions, or view. Participation was actually pretty terrible before. So in some ways, we've lost some people because of technology, and we've had to be more intentional about that as well. But we've also just gained a lot more people because of it. So that's been helpful. But it's really all about intentionality. There are, I've been to plenty of meetings where there's not a lot of people that are in attendance, and you kind of hear from organizers that it's actually by design. Oh, we just hold these meetings because we need to, and nobody comes, so we can just move on with the project. I mean, you kind of hear all of those things, and that's I think that's maybe sort of like just some of the cynicism or lack of creativity that exists, because there are a lot of community meetings or a lot of public meetings or hearings about issues or projects, and some, like, even I don't even know about things that I care about until maybe it's in the news. Sometimes I'm so focused on the place that I work that I don't always pay attention to where I live, right, and kind of see things until they make the news. So it is hard, but Google Alerts help a little bit, and again, I just had to work with a group of students at the high school here who are trying to get more immigrants to vote in the election. And, we're trying to put together what the lesson plan is to kind of convince, more immigrants to vote, and why it's important, why it makes a difference, and really talking about, not just assuming that the anti-immigration, conversations that have happened in the last few years have automatically mean that people are more engaged. Some people are, and some people are disengaged. So, again, just brokering those conversations, making the case. We still have to do that work.
What was your decision like to run for an elected position, and kind of like what were the biggest challenges that you had when you were going through that election process?
Yeah, I would say it was 10 years of not thinking about running, and then suddenly I was running. And I think that transition was super easy for me because between the ages of 18 and 27, I had been pretty actively working on campaigns, not as a career, but just as a volunteer. And then when you're a volunteer, you suddenly have friends that also volunteer for campaigns, and then they start running for things, and it just normalized it. So, when I ran, it was really sort of and I think it's hard enough. It was really just a personal decision, right? Like, do I have the ability to, quit my job and run full time? Do I have the ability to win? Do I know what it's like to put myself in the public eye, and what's the impact on my family, and what happens if I get elected? What happens if I don't? Those kinds of questions. But the questions of how do you run? What is this thing called politics? that was all second nature. I mean, I had been doing it for a decade. So, I knew exactly what all the lingo was. I knew who to reach out to. It was not this alien thing. But I think for a lot of people, it's scary. When I've gone to a lot of trainings, people are like, oh, I figured out, how to make it work personally, but I'm just so scared of running, or I just don't know how to do it. So the more you are involved in not only just the board, but I think the more you volunteer for a campaign, then you understand the mechanics of it, and it becomes less scary. Like, I'll be honest, I've actually never changed a tire on my car. And, in the back of my mind, I'm like, will I ever need to change my tire, or can I just call AAA? But I feel like if I just do it once, like, I'll never have that fear, like, in the back of my head of what happens if, like, I have to change my tire and I can't call AAA, or I have to wait. It's some, not to minimize running for office, because it's a big deal, but there is a science behind it. You have to get more votes than everybody else. And there's a way to kind of to do that, and a way to think about that and frame it and create a strategy around it. But in terms of, where I was personally, it did help that I was 27, because, I knew, I actually did think, and again, this is personal. I don't want to, say that you should make different decisions, but I kind of thought, I'm 27, I'm not married, I don't have a kid at that stage. My career is is taking off, but I can afford to, to do this at this time, and I can still afford to kind of go back and, change careers, build a career, whatever, go back to what I was doing, or rethink what that is. So that was something I thought of. And I thought of, what happens if I waited 2 years? What happens if I waited 4? I kind of like gamed all that out in my head. And it just made sense to say, there's nothing stopping me from doing it now. So I'm 41 now, right? And I've got the toddler and the husband and the mortgage, and realizing the importance of health insurance now that I'm using it more, because things start to break down a little bit. And my game plan would still be similarly, which is, can I afford to, take time off and run for something? Can I, what are the impacts of my career? What are the impacts on family? So if there was I'll be honest, if there was something that was attractive and it made sense for me, I would probably even look at my current circumstance and say, there's nothing there that's preventing me from running for office again. But again, it's a personal decision, because some people would be in similar situations to say, they can't for whatever reason.
I think I might have left that out of your biography by saying that you had that you were the mayor at the age of 27, right? That's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I don't know if you want to give a little bit of that background of, you were the youngest mayor, right? That Fitchburg ever had, and maybe a little bit of a background on just the process and how you how you got there.
Yeah, so I was not the youngest. I was the third youngest. There was
I thought you were the youngest. Okay.
No, there was a 25-year-old and also a 27-year-old.
Okay.
They're both since retired. It was interesting to kind of run against, 4 male candidates who were, twice my age, and to know, with a lot of certainty that I was the most qualified candidate. And I do say that as, it's just my particular circumstances. I happened to run against 4 people who did not have the breadth of management that I had had. At 27, I had been, CEO of a nonprofit and a quasi-public agency. I had worked in, I knew how to manage budgets and people, and I knew how to do things, and I had, literally built stuff that I could point to. And I had energy and ideas, and I also had more political connections, because I had been working in politics for 10 years and knew elected leaders from across the state. So, I looked at Fitchburg's particular circumstances and said, I am absolutely the best person to turn the city around and to do what needs to be done. And in my case, I had worked in the town, in the city for about 4.5 years. I had only lived there for about 6 months. So I wasn't a long time resident. It wasn't on my trajectory to run. Like I said, I was working in Boston and doing other things. But again, sometimes circumstance compels you to say, this is something I feel very passionate about, and this is something I want to do, and this is something I know that I'm the best qualified person to do. And at that particular time in 2007, the city had, it was in a really bad financial shape. A couple crazy things had happened. So one is that the schools were in such bad shape that one of the schools, like the roof actually collapsed in the front part of the building while kids were in the building, but thankfully not that part of the building. But that scared the hell out of me, and I didn't even have kids in that school, and no one seemed to care. I was like, this is kind of a big deal. Again, because I built physical infrastructure, and the group that I had actually been leading, the nonprofit, worked on rebuilding. Actually, the two groups I led were about rebuilding, mill buildings and old buildings. And so I knew about real estate, and I was like, okay, so I could apply that to helping to fix the schools. And then the town had also, the bond rating had gone down to a triple B minus, which is like to the point where you really might not be able to borrow money. you're at the point of not being able to make payroll, and it was really bad. It was the lowest in the state, and it had a negative outlook. So, and no one seemed to understand what that meant or care or understood how to change finances. And again, that's my background and my role. I had taught in this area, and I had actually worked in other countries helping to look at economic development and financial systems, and actually figure out how to turn places around. So again, another area that I knew that I had much more experience than other folks. And then the other area was there was potentially some corruption that was happening. The treasurer had actually committed suicide after stealing money from the town. There was a suspect that it had gone a lot deeper than that, but there really wasn't any investigation, or there was really not an understanding of what exactly happened. And, but again, my work in human rights and finances and, rebuilding cities and towns and working in developing countries, I'd worked in places that were corrupt and really kind of understand the mechanisms of how that worked and how to investigate and how to fix that, both from an individual case standpoint, but also from a much more systematic approach. So, there's ways to kind of look at things and think very easily. Somebody is a different gender, they look like all the people that held those positions before, they know all the lingo, whatever it is that we say in our heads that we think that other people are more qualified. And the bottom line is just listening to your questions and seeing that you're part of Junior League and listening to your brief bios. I would absolutely say you are probably eminently more qualified than a lot of people in positions that you're thinking about running for ever in your life, whether it's now or later.
So what do you do when you come in on day one? It sounded like you were up against a lot when you started.
Well, day one started on, even before the campaign, before I even thought about running. It was seeing what was wrong. And the reasons that compel you to run are kind of, laid out for you. Like, these are your priorities. These are the things that you want to work on. So in my case, I had laid out a 4-term plan. So I ran for 4 terms and then I left. So I had a plan of exactly what I was going to do for each term and what my focus was going to be on and how I would change that. And then I just, you sort of like executed. And then if things change, you kind of have to to kind of work with that. But like I said, there's a systematic way to deal with finances. You know, we increased our bond rate. We had three big jumps in our bond rating, and we were able to borrow for less, make payroll, put a lot of money in the bank. We were able to start fixing stuff. We were able to start fixing like physical stuff, and start fixing systems, you know, creating a different structure within city government. I did a big reorganization in my first 3 months, because I also knew that you have this this honeymoon period. So, you know, I worked with, you know, people who I knew were legally versed in finances. I mean, sorry, in you know, local municipal government, and I came up with a reorganization structure that, you know, took power from here and put power there, and kind of, you know, I think took like 22 department heads and created 11 department heads, and created structure where I could get a CFO and, you know, create some redundancy with deputy positions that could report directly to the mayor, things that created transparency. And that was the first major piece of legislation that I passed. I think, I want to say maybe I started in January. I think I got it passed in April, right before the budget, and then put it into the budget. And I did it deliberately because I knew that no one was going to be paying attention to it. So I thought, if you're going to make that big structural change, kind of like slip it in, and then, you know, it doesn't look like anything like totally controversial. But what it did is it set me up for the next 8 years, where I had the right power and infrastructure to then make that change moving forward.
So what was the hardest, most trying kind of decision you had to make?
You know, oddly enough, I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
You know, I understand political capital, and I wasn't afraid to use it and lose it,
Yeah.
depending on what the particular issue was. But, you know, the only one that got me a protest was when I slashed the library budget from like, I don't know, it was awful. Like, I think it was like over $1 million, and I think I slashed it down to like 300,000. But it, you know, and obviously people like had a, you know, they had rallies outside, and I mean, I went to every rally. I sat with people, I cried with them. You know, I talked about it in public. You know, there was a woman, the librarian that was there when I cut the budget. She left and went to Winchester. I didn't realize that. So, 10 years later, I'm interviewing for the Winchester job. I'm 7 months pregnant. I'm at a pseudo town hall that's as part of their 6-part hiring process. And, you know, this auditorium is packed full of people, you know, asking me a whole bunch of questions. And suddenly the Winchester Library trustees, you know, and the librarian come forward, you kill the library in Pittsburgh, you know, you're going to do the same here. And I burst out crying, like sobbing, you know, and I'm like, I didn't want to do that. I'm like, this, you know, like I'm like, you know, when you're a leader and you have to make decisions that you yourself hate, but you know is the right thing to do at the time. And I'm like, and you just freaking hate it, you know? And I'm like, I hate it. And I'm just like, I didn't want to do it, but it had to be done. You know, I'll do things here that I won't like either. And so, you know, somebody yelled, get the pregnant woman a chair. She's been standing for an hour. So somebody got me a chair, sitting down, you know, people start like clapping, like, oh my God, she cares. I'm like, oh my God.
I think that's a really important lesson, right? Is to say, like, we're all human.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that there's, you know, there's sort of, there's like a master class on authentic leadership where, I don't know if it's WGBH or somebody is doing something this month that I really wanted to go to, but it was about how difficult it is oftentimes for, for people with diverse backgrounds to show up authentically in their workplace, whether it's, LGBTQ or whether it's a person of color or whatever it is, to show up in these traditional spaces and, and to be authentic, because you kind of have to, you kind of think you have to follow another model. But I will tell you that I apparently have, cried my way to the top in a way that is not too embarrassing, I think. I laugh about it, but like, it's what I do. Apparently, yeah. I get very emotional about things. So, I guess you can still do that. You can still, get hired in a job that is, very, very few women in town manager jobs, and you could do it while sobbing and pregnant, I guess.
It's a super, super important lesson, I think, for all of us women to remember that, we are human. We do have emotions. We're not, society may expect us to be, stone cold and stone faced. But at the end of the day, I think real authentic leaders do show, their emotions, and constituents, employees, and others, I think, really appreciate authenticity in their leaders.
Yeah, I just want to sort of give a story. So
yeah,
the first time I was ever like a CEO was when I was head of the Fitchburg Redevelopment Authority, and I had, taken over for somebody who had taken an early retirement package. So I think I was 23 and, like an outsider. And I actually, here I am, like running a multi-million-dollar, agency, like building stuff. And like I had never done that before. I was working in human rights, so I wasn't from there. I didn't necessarily have that expertise. The reason why I got that job in the first place is during the interview process, I was up against what I would say is a strong field of traditional candidates. And, again, I came in with sort of my international, like think globally, act locally approach. I had a game plan for exactly what I thought needed to be done. They're hiring me to implement a plan. My recommendation was to throw away that plan. They had spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars on that plan. And I was like, throw it away, it sucks. This is why. The secretary who was there taking notes is the one that convinced them to hire me. She's like, so of all the people there, she's like, who do you really think is going to make an impact? It's not about like how much they know, it's about what impact they're going to make. And they ended up hiring me, and they didn't really have a game plan for hiring, because I don't think they knew exactly what was going to happen. So I took over the agency like a year later. And, it was like, and I grew it 10 times bigger, and I did things my own way, which is really great. But I had, there's a couple of things that I thought about there. One is that, don't discount, who exactly you need to impress, right, to get these positions. The second is the person that was my boss, who I took over and filled his shoes and then made them my own. I'm trying to summarize it, but he was like a self-admitted like homophobic misogynist who was reformed, and he went through, I think, a very difficult time where one of his kids had come out and he wasn't as accepting as he should have been, and it really tore him up, and there was a lot of reconciliation. And he kind of came through it at the end, where he was very open about saying like he never thought women were, should have been like, he's just like, I grew up in an era where like we didn't just see women running things. And he was completely supportive. He gave me like full run of things. When I was hired, he stayed on as a consultant, but totally stayed behind the scenes. I mean, he was amazing in terms of, giving me that platform and self-esteem where I never had to question my abilities. It was actually quite amazing. Because I was like 21 and now I'm 41. And I will say that this current position, I had been made to feel very small a lot. And so it's made me appreciate how a 41-year-old with a 20-year amazing track record, personally, professionally, can be made to feel small because of the people that I happen to be around, and how this person made me feel at 21 like I could do anything. And because of what I did there, I was able to go and then be headhunted and have all these other amazing responsibilities, and then eventually, quit those things and go run for mayor, and then have that amazing run, and then be able to come to spaces like this and talk with and impact other people. But I will say, so one thing I tried to do is, he's this like little Italian guy, and he would be on the phone and he would be like yelling at somebody, like, I don't know, like, you see like in the old Italian movies, like, and he would like bang on the table. And then like, so he would have this whole like shtick, and it like worked every time. And I'm like, so it was like internalizing this. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to practice this, so I was sort of being blackmailed by some city officials. Jen, I'm not going to name who they are because
No, you don't have to.
I ended up being their boss a couple of years later, but they were like kind of blackmailing the redevelopment authority for more money on something that was completely unfair. And so I had to kind of negotiate hard, and so I like I think I tried to put on like the old angry Italian voice. And I pounded my fist on the table like that. They freaking jumped out of their chair, wouldn't believe, and like ran away. Like the meeting ended, they ran away. The next day, the mayor, the then mayor, called me into his office, had me wait for half an hour, pulled me into the conference room. He had 2 of my board members with him. He had all of these department heads with him, and no one had any idea why we were there. But I had a feeling. So he comes in and then basically says like starts trashing me, but doesn't even say what had happened the other day. It was like, and then he had all the department heads go around and like trash me. Like, it's almost like they had to come up with something that they hated about me or my work, because it's like you do it, like, and I was like, oh my God, it's so toxic, right? I'm like absorbing all of this, like, and it was all men, and I'm like, this is so toxic. But this is how things are run, right? So I'm getting this master lesson in how, guys like run things, right? They're like just throwing their masculinity around. And I'm just like, wow, this is so bad. Like, these people have, they feel like they have to kind of take that lead. They have to follow, and I all of those things, I think, helped me years later become a better mayor. So I almost knew what to do on day one, because I'm like, I'm gonna F this, system up because it sucks. And I don't know what that achieved. It achieved everybody deciding that they're going to dump on me. And, like one person was like, the assessor was, it's a shame that you take properties, by eminent domain, to rehab them. Cause, I have to take them by eminent domain, then rehab them and then sell them back. Because when you do that, because you're a nonprofit, we lose taxes. You lose, you've taken, like, it was like, so you want that vacant property to just sit there collecting like no taxes? Like, like they had to like come up with something, anyway, I'm sorry. So that,
yeah,
there's so many situations that I think I know a lot of us are in. And I will then say, like, so when I was 25, and I was making some career moves. I remember a bunch of girlfriends and myself went on like 25-year-old version of spring break to Cancun, and all of us left that vacation and we made major career moves because we had been we kind of talked about the various toxicity that we were dealing with in our own fields. And I was the only one in public service. Everybody else was in finance and IT and a legal career, and so on. And what I realized then is that we're all kind of dealing with the same thing, but I was the only one who could talk about it and actually like make a positive difference and advance my career, you know, in a way where I could be known for talking out about things. Because like, I remember my friend who was in finance, I mean, she actually worked for a major company, and I won't say who, but she worked for a company that the head of the company is actually a sitting US Senator right now, right? It's somebody who had major political connections, but she couldn't say the kind of crap they were doing to her because they basically told her she would be blacklisted. They would blacklist her from ever working, you know, in private equity if she kind of talked about the toxicity that she had, you know, like overlooked. She was overlooked for promotion one time, and they actually said, we're promoting the other guy because he's getting married and starting a family and we need to support him. Can I tell you how many women have had people say, you are getting married and you are going to have kids, so we're going to promote the crap out of you so we can support you over the guy, right? Like who does that happen to? And then they followed up with saying, and we've noticed that you come in you're tan, and you ride a bike to work, so you'll be okay. You're a happy girl. And I was like, did you just, but I mean, 16 years ago, I mean, we need these kind of spaces because sometimes we feel like we're going absolutely bonkers, you know, when we don't have these spaces and we don't realize that, that we do internalize all of this stuff. And some of this is really, it's toxic, it's systematic, and, you know, and we have to talk about it and share it and acknowledge it in order for us to process it and then make a difference. Because otherwise we internalize it. Like, you know, the past year in the pandemic, I've been internalizing a lot of stuff just because I haven't had my girlfriends around, and it's just a really hard job to kind of be in government and dealing with the pandemic and dealing with all the things that are happening right now. So, you know, just because you deal with it once and you know, you have stories to laugh about, it doesn't mean that it goes away. There's still a lot more work to do.
Yeah. I think that's a really good lesson, Lisa, about saying that, you know, for you being involved kind of in that systemic issue of misogyny, right, in government, you know, you were almost given a gift, right, to say you're in this particular role, you've experienced it, but you've turned it around and used it for the good to start to speak out about it. When unfortunately, maybe your girlfriends weren't able to because they were not in a place where they could speak up about it.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm going through, you know, there's been a lot of increasing violence against Asian Americans because of the pandemic. And it's now Lunar New Year. And every day I read some story about, you know, Asians that are getting attacked, you know, just seemingly randomly, but, and I myself have been the target of pretty overt racism in the past year, including at public meetings where people are chanting racial slurs at me, and then seeing that no one else cares or thinks it's an issue has been very troubling. And then bringing it up and then saying that I need to get over it, or somebody actually saying, you know, you're not the victim here. I'm like, I don't understand how people chanting Lisa Wong, URACHINK over and over again, how I'm not the target when it's my name and a racial slur. But it's a lot, you know, it's probably the definition of gaslighting, or it's you know, it's other issues that are being placed on people. And I've been really struggling about how to use, you know, these examples, because I know that when I haven't spoken up about it, it's made me really depressed. And when I have spoken up about it, you know, and I've gotten pretty terrible reactions, that it makes me, again, understand my strategy. It says like, okay, so I'm not the only one. Here's this toxic environment, just like the toxicity of, you know, that when I was called into the mayor's office, right, and everybody decided to, you know, to bash on Lisa, it's kind of that same dynamic still exists. So I think about it. So you know, really understood the word performative allyship in the last few weeks, and really tried to find those who are real allies. So for example, I wasn't finding a lot of support locally, so I went to the Town Managers Association, and we worked on a letter and an action plan that we sent to every single town manager in Massachusetts about like what to do if you see if you see racism, what to do, and here are some things you could do to be anti-racist in your town. And because of that, it's highlighted the issue in all municipalities that the association has made diversity, equity, inclusion a permanent committee, not just a temporary task force. Other town managers of color have contacted me and said that same things have happened to them, but they've never spoken up because they felt shame, or they internalized that it wasn't a big deal. So therefore they didn't share their own story. And therefore they didn't signal to the community that we know this is happening in the community to non-public officials. It's not okay. They're hate crimes that we need to take them seriously. So that makes me feel good that I'm able to to tell my peers that this is not okay, so they can be different leaders in their own towns. And I keep hearing from more and more towns that have taken the template that we put out there and passed proclamations about how to actually be against hate, not just putting up a sign, but actually making steps move forward. So there's many different ways that we can sort of navigate around that. And again, that's one of the gifts of being in the public space. Like I said, it does come with a lot of scrutiny, but it does come with opportunities where when you speak out, there's opportunities for you to find groups and allies and other people to start to make a difference. Sometimes not in your own backyard at first, but at least, in some spaces.
Well, Lisa, I want to be respectful of your time. I think that was just an amazing way to end this session, really, is to say the gift of public office is, it does come with some scrutiny, right? You have to have some thick skin, but at the same time, it gives you an opportunity to use a platform to really make a change and make a positive change. Not only, like you said, not only maybe it's not in your individual community, but it could be in the adjacent communities that you live in and that you work in, or maybe your family and friends live in and work in. I'm going to open it up just for, see if there's any last questions or comments for Lisa. Okay. Well, Lisa, thank you so much. On behalf of everybody from Junior League of Boston, we've certainly learned so much from you. We wish you continued success as your town manager position in Winchester. And I know that many of us will be following you. And I know a lot of us now will be starting to do some research on the diversity and inclusion and anti-racism that you put forward as a permanent committee for the Town Managers Association. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank everyone.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.